Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to this week's Women in Recruitment webinar. I hope you've had a good week. I have to say thank goodness for the sunshine, because I think it's the one thing that's kept me sane this week, particularly with the hay fever being particularly heavy and hard. So excuse me if you hear me spluttering in the background. I'm Natasha Clarke, Chair of Women in Recruitment, and this week I'm going to be talking to Angharad Kenward, Senior Director at Investigo. And I think this week, for a lot of people, has been perhaps one of the hardest weeks since lockdown started. From talking to a number of people, and I include myself in this, I think as we've started to establish the new norms, we've also started to think about the future and what that might hold for us. And today, hopefully, we will put ourselves in a good place and start to think about the best and worst of what we've perhaps learned over the last few weeks, and from what we may well have learned from pre-lockdown. So Angharad will be sharing with us her best learns for thriving under challenge and building confidence, and hopefully all these things will help you through the next few weeks as they are, and as you start to think about what life might be like when we come out the other side. So welcome, Angharad, and I'll pass over to you. Oh, sorry, just a quick, got to mention, apologies everyone, questions please, if you don't mind sending those through on the chat box as we're speaking. There will be opportunities for me to post some of those to Angharad as she talks or at the end, so yeah, please do send them through as we go to the chat box.
Absolutely, feel free to ask any questions as we go along. I don't want to just be talking at you all, but thanks for having me today. As Natasha said, my name's Angharad Kenward. I'm a Senior Director at Investigo. Today I'm going to talk you through some of the top tips for thriving, in brackets, surviving in a challenging environment. This is not rocket science, but hopefully by sharing some of my stories and my views, it will provide a little diversity of thought for you all. There is no doubt, by the way, that we are in tough times. You know, no matter what your role is and what area you work in, it's safe to say that kind of the recruitment industry is on its knees. But I will tell you this, having worked in 2008 during the recession and in difficult and challenging markets, there is absolutely opportunity. And it's all about using this opportunity to your advantage in any way that you can. So I want to start by telling you a bit about me. I'll try and keep it brief because I do like to talk about myself. I'm Welsh, and I was brought up in the valleys as an only child in quite a normal family environment. My father is my hero. He went from sort of shoveling chip-ins in the valleys to a very senior role at Pfizer through sheer grit, determination, and very little sleep. And this is where I get my work ethic from. I'm a sort of failed actress. I studied drama at university and went into acting at an early age, and then soon realised that I needed to grow up. But I think recruitment has probably been my best and most challenging role. I have 3-year-old twins who keep me on my toes, really keep me on my toes. I'm a big sports fan and a big music fan. I'm into rugby, F1, lots of gigs and festivals, which I really hope return at some point soon. I'm a bit of an old rocker. I've seen the Rolling Stones 8 times, first time when I was 4 years of age. I don't really have any hobbies because I've pretty much given my life to recruitment, which I'm sure a lot of you have as well, and very sad, I know. But I enjoy time with my family, with friends, anything involving a glass of wine. I'm there, and I'm also an avid gym goer as well. In terms of my recruitment career, I started in a business called S3, which was the best and worst time in my career. It really taught me about hard work, to be tough, and to aim high. 2 stories I'd like to share with you from that time. There was a sign over the door. So as you left, the sign that you saw was, can you really afford to leave? And that's what you were faced with every time you left the building. And the second story was, during my time at S3, on a night out, I was encouraged to put all my rent money on red in a casino, which I absolutely lost, as I'm sure you can imagine. And the concept behind this was that if you were under financial pressure, you would work harder. It was a real sort of cutthroat environment, but the core of what S3 was all about still kind of stays with me today. I then moved to Hudson, which was probably the turning point in my early career. I found my home at Hudson, and I was there for 4.5 years. In that time, I broke records as a biller, became the top biller in the UK, earned my first kind of serious bonuses, and moved into management. I wasn't, however, a very good manager at that time. In fact, I was pretty awful, to be honest with you. My expectations of myself were extremely high, and I inflicted that on my people, which wasn't fair. I was a tell type of manager, and my relationship with my team was very adult-child, not adult-adult. So I grew up a lot at Hudson, and I learned a lot of lessons, and it was probably the biggest growth in my career to date. But I soon realised that I wasn't really a corporate person, and that I was quite entrepreneurial, and that I wanted to join something that I could own, that wasn't a big NASDAQ listed business. So I joined Investigo 9 years ago now, which is absolutely crazy. I can't believe it's been, that long. And I genuinely feel like Investigo is my business. It's a really big part of who I am. And I've got a love and a passion for it that I haven't had before in my recruitment career. I've done 2 big startups in my time at Investigo. I was the first ever AD promotion. I was the first woman to be promoted to director in the business. I was the first female to join the operating board of the business. And I'd say I'm generally a well-regarded part of the management team. I also lead our CSR agenda and our diversity and inclusion strategy. I'm actively involved in the mentoring scheme, our Aspire program, which is all about second jobbers, and I support our L&D strategy as well. Before I go into my tips, I will say that for me, being proud of the business you work for is an absolute must. I couldn't imagine working for a company where I didn't feel proud of the decisions that they were making and the people within the organisation. Personally, as a leader, I will do anything for my people, and I will do anything for this business to ensure people are happy and successful, even in really difficult times like we're in at the moment. I'm going to pause there just to see if there's any questions before I jump into my tips.
No, there's nothing come through just yet, Angharad.
Okay.
So
I'll crack on.
Let you keep going. Thank you.
I'll keep going.
Thank you.
So, as I said, this stuff is common sense, but it's sort of my tips through not just the last 5 weeks actually, but through sort of nearly 15 years in the recruitment industry. I don't think since 2008, especially, we've really seen a boom time. And I've been through many challenging times in my career, and so I wanted to collate my thoughts and sort of share some of them with you. And as I said, hopefully it's nothing unexpected, but it would just give you some food for thought. So my first tip is own your shit and hustle. Pardon my language. And what I mean by that is, I guess there is no doubt that at the moment we all have to pedal harder. No matter what role you're doing, whether you're a leader or a recruiter, working hard is an absolute must, but working harder than probably you've ever worked before is absolutely necessary. In my opinion, this is the time for a hunter mentality. And unfortunately, my view is that the farmers may get left behind. So what I mean by that hunter mentality is someone that's going to go out and be proactive and really find opportunities to succeed. It's not enough to do what you did before. And it's also not enough just to do a bit more. This should be the fight of your life. And I think even if you're in a safe organisation, and even if things are looking okay, to be honest with you, we're all fighting for our jobs at the moment across all sectors. And therefore we need to react to that. I'd encourage you all to help your team and your peers to do the same and really pull together. It really is survival of the fittest. And my view here is that, and I'm not just about hard work, but my view here is that you need to be better, stronger, quicker than those around you and than your competition, frankly. And like I say, that hustle mentality is really, really important. I've mentioned a couple of times that in 2008, I was in the recruitment space, and we were obviously in a recession. It was really tough times. We went from a really buoyant market to almost overnight, the phones just stopped ringing. And unfortunately, at that point, I was in a brand new market. So I had no relationships, no real knowledge, no expertise, and I had to prove myself. in a market that I had no understanding of, that was completely flat. And trust me, it was incredibly hard. I took knock after knock after knock, and you know, I was relatively young and new into my recruitment career, and I didn't really know what I was doing, to be honest with you. At that point, I also had quite a weak management team above me, and everybody went into panic mode, you know, and a bit like we've experienced in the last few weeks, you know, that initial sort of panic. You know, I've seen people in the recruitment sector make real panic decisions and react very, very quickly, and certainly that happened in 2008. And when I worked for Hudson, you know, 50% of our revenue came from banking and financial services. So, you know, it was a really, really tough time. And how I got through that time was you know, to really dig deep and work hard. But it was, you know, setting myself achievable goals on a daily basis, being really focused about the structure of my day and what I wanted to achieve. There's a saying that my team always hear me say, but that saying is, be famous for something. And what I mean by that is, you know, be all over your market, be that name that people know, build those relationships where you are the first call. And if you're not at that stage in your recruitment career, where your desk is or where your market is, then absolutely make that happen. You know, you should be a brand in your own right. And I think, you know, in order to survive in a time like this, you know, you have to take that above and beyond where you normally would be. At that time, you know, I learned how resilient I actually could be. And it also gave me real confidence in the fact that, you know, like I said before, no matter what's happening in the market or the economy or with COVID-19, there is absolutely opportunity out there. And if it means that you come out of this with new relationships, with stronger relationships, with a better brand, you know, that should absolutely be the focus.
We've had one question come in, Angharad, if you wouldn't mind, which
yeah,
I think
of course.
Might be worth dropping in now, and that's, how are you keeping your team going at the moment, especially account managers who don't lean towards the hunting mentality?
Yeah, it's a really good question. You know, there's a kind of team morale, well-being part to that question, but there's also a skill part to that question. So in terms of keeping my team going, you know, I'm in the trenches with them, and I'm doing everything I can. I'm supporting them. You know, I haven't really recruited for a couple of years, but I'm going out there and I'm doing business development. I'm picking up with my network, and I'm working with them to keep their spirits up. You know, I'm speaking to them probably more regularly than I would do, and really bolstering them in terms of, you know, giving them some confidence in terms of what they can achieve. Again, you know, it goes back to this, you've got to go above and beyond as a manager, as a leader, and probably do things that you normally wouldn't do to make sure that your people can survive this challenging time. You know, we are sharing more than we ever would do. We are, you know, I'm helping my team structure their day, you know, basic things like helping them build infrastructure, you know, whether that's business development lists, whether that's new ideas to take to market, whether that's helping them with events and giving them a focus that isn't just about banging the phones, because that's not realistic. You know, doing 12-hour days and just BDing and banging the phones all the time, it's not going to work, right? And you'll burn out. So giving them tools and topics that they can take to market in a slightly different way.
And that somewhat, I mean, someone else has just commented on how are you supporting them with their mental health and well-being, and I think part of being in the trenches with them certainly is a contributing factor, isn't it, to being able to understand what your team are going through, where their mental state is, and actually sort of being there to share the journey with them. But is there anything else that you would maybe suggest alongside that?
One of my tips is actually around well-being and mental health, so I do a whole section on that. But absolutely, it's of the utmost importance. Actually, just as important as, you know, profit and revenue and performance and stats and all that sort of stuff. And you know, we've all got different scenarios. I've got people with children, you know, that are struggling. You know, I've dealt with that myself. I've got people that are in flats in London on their own with no outdoor space and no jobs to work. And you know, they have to be right at the top of your agenda in terms of going above and beyond to support them. The second bit around account management. So we are lucky enough to have a really strong L&D function. And, you know, if you've got one of those, or you've got trainers, or, you know, or you've got people in your team that are really good at training, really lean on them, because while someone may not be a hunter at the moment, they may absolutely have that capability. It's not going to happen overnight, but, you know, absolutely trying to upskill them during this period and coming out of this with a real win, which is that they have a new set of tools. You know, I'd say that's something to celebrate. You know, if they aren't willing to change, you know, if they genuinely can't, then obviously you've got to think about what's right for your business. But I'd also think about what those people are able to achieve. You know, it could be that they're very good at finding candidates, and therefore could you job share? You know, someone that's very good at BD, you know, focus them on selling and hunting, and someone that's very good at resourcing, maybe slightly change their role. I think thinking creatively and thinking in a more entrepreneurial way is really, really important in these times. There's no one fixed answer for that, but, you know, you've got to understand where the skill lies in your team, and in yourself as well, you know, in the skill that you have, and you've got to try and manage that effectively to get the best out of the market at the moment. So hopefully that answers your question.
Thank you.
Really good questions though, thank you for that, keep them coming. My next tip is really simply dig deep. And it may sound a bit harsh, but in difficult times, we absolutely have to develop a thicker skin. And you need to get your confidence from somewhere. You know, my motto has always been JFDI, and I won't say the F bit, but it's about just do it. You know, so now is not the time for procrastination, but for action. And you know, you've got to have the ability to sort of have a word with yourself and find the confidence and energy from somewhere to really kind of power through and truck on. And also believe that you can get through this, which I know isn't easy, because, you know, every day, you know, there's a new challenge, right? Every day you feel like you've one step forward, two step back. And I really recognize that. But, you know, those small things that may affect you on a day-to-day basis, in the normal world, actually they can't affect you now. You have to be a bit braver, and you have to have that thick skin. One of the things that I've done over my career, which sounds really pretentious, and I don't want you to think that I am, because I'm not, but I kept a praise folder. And that praise folder, anybody that said anything good about me, whether as a candidate or client or someone internally, I popped it in that praise folder. And I would absolutely recommend anybody do this. And that praise folder was there for the moment where I doubted myself, and you know, I lost my confidence, or, you know, I was just having a bad week or a bad day, and I'd had a big knock, and I'd go back to that praise folder, and I just remember, you know, why I was in the position that I was in, why I was good at what I did, and it just gave me that extra boost that I needed, to kind of push harder, and you know, sort of, it's about shaking yourself off and thinking, you know what, yes, the market's hard, yes, you know, the jobs are low, yes, the market is struggling, but actually, hopefully we are safe and well, and we absolutely will come out of this. So the things that normally affect me, the things that I get frustrated about, I'm not going to let them affect me, and actually I'm going to develop this armor to ensure that I can get through this situation. And I guess an example from my career, you know, that you know, hopefully can give you some insight, is that the second startup I did at Investigo was a public sector business. Investigo is a private sector organisation by way of background, and it's safe to say they looked down their noses, or they did look down their nose at public sector. And I suppose I was in that camp as well. You know, the perception was it was low margin, it wasn't very glamorous, it wasn't really the type of recruitment that we would do, given that we're a mid to senior, you know, more of a corporate blue chip type of recruiter. So I stuck my neck out. You know, I saw an opportunity, and I presented to the board at the time, and I asked for investment in public sector, and I was sort of told, you know, on your own head be it. And it was really, really tough. You know, everybody doubted the strategy. You know, certainly my other peers, you know, thought, God, why are you doing that? You know, why are you starting that type of business? And, you I definitely took a few knocks, and I had to remind myself why I believed in doing that. I had to shake myself off, and I just had to, keep going and believe in myself. And I did have to dig deep, and it was a really successful story. But, the recruitment industry in general isn't easy, and none of us would be in it if we were kind of shy, retiring flowers. So you've just got to go back and think about what got you into this space in the first place. Why have you been successful? How have you been successful? And believe that you can do that again. Any questions?
Yeah, there's quite a few actually coming through, Angharad, and I guess I'm trying to work out if it's right to put them in now or whether I should wait for you to do your tips.
I don't mind, it's your call.
There is one here which is, I think you've slightly answered it just now, but I wonder if there's anything more practical you'd like to add. But that's, how are you structuring your day to avoid procrastination? I mean, you've just talked to us about where you get your armour from and how you remind yourself what you're good at. But on a day-to-day basis, is there anything you do to make sure when you get to the end of the day, you haven't just been, there's one thing around keeping yourself busy doing stuff, isn't there? And there's another actually being productive and coming out with something that's made a difference.
Yeah, so one of the things that's worked really well in my business areas is that we've tried to do themes. So last week we did the Olympics, and we just got, it's just about making something fun and getting variety. So, mixing it up a lot. So, for example, one day was all about references and referrals, and there was a bit of a mini competition going on about, across the teams, who could get the most referrals, who could get the most references. Obviously, you're doing your BAU stuff as well at the same time, but, something slightly different and a bit of an add-on. So I'd absolutely recommend giving your day variety, giving yourself goals, maybe making it a competition between some friends or across your teams, and actually sort of pushing yourself to go that extra mile. In terms of procrastination, I would do the tough stuff first, get it out of the way. Sometimes when we think about the tough stuff, you put it off, and then when you do it, you get a real buzz. And I'd say, look, speaking to candidates morning, noon and night, it's not going to get you where you want to get to. So the tougher stuff, the business development, the client engagement, the references, the referrals, all that sort of stuff, you've got to do all of it. Going back to basics is one thing, but you kind of need to be doing the basics on speed. And you need to be hitting all of those every day. So if you're not sure about how to structure it, then compare notes with your peers or ask your manager, but give yourself variety, but make sure that you're hitting goals that aren't just call people, because that's not going to work.
Thank you.
My next tip is around finding your voice and making yourself valuable. So what you normally do day to day in a good market, it may not work currently. Although there may be sort of roles and jobs out there, your team may not be performing, you may be under financial pressure, people around you could be furloughed, and the world is really different at the moment, and it can be a bit disconcerting. So adding value in general, I feel, is really crucial. And whether that be to a client, okay, they've got no jobs on, but what else can you do to add value? How can you show yourself to be a good contact of theirs and be a good partner to them? And that's also around finding your voice and bringing together a topic that, sort of sets you apart from your competition or sets you apart internally, but it's about finding something else to talk about that really adds value across, either your internal organisation or your external organisation. I think if you carry on as you normally do in a BAU environment, and you don't speak up, you don't find a topic that could be useful to someone, you could be left in the shadows. And obviously everybody's at risk at the moment with salary cuts and furloughing and 4 days a week or whatever that looks like. So, it's a tip that I've really found useful. I'll give you an example. Wellbeing and mental health has been really useful, has been a real topic across our business. And an individual in my team came to me and said, look, I feel like exercise of some sort is really important. So he volunteered to set up virtual running club, a weekly step challenge, and he's doing HIIT sessions every Wednesday. You know, it doesn't need to be, you know, selling a retainer, because let's be honest, that's pretty unlikely. Or if it is likely, then fantastic. But, you know, what else can you be doing to demonstrate your capability and your value, either to your client base or to your leadership team internally? Every little helps, and it's all about pulling together. In terms of sort of, go on.
Just going to say, I think that's really important, and I do think just to build on that slightly, because there's a danger, isn't there, that we carry on selling as we would have done in what were normal times, and that's not really what people want at the moment, is it? People don't really want a pushy sales approach. I mean, we need to let people know we're still here, we're still open for business, and that they can access our services. So we need to remind people that that's still possible. But equally, I think you're right, that very much showing the empathy, the understanding, and that actually you're in this for the long haul with them, even when at the moment perhaps they don't have anything for you. So my experience would tell me, Angharad, is, you know, a really good piece of advice.
Yeah, and you know, it could be around innovation, it could be market intel, it could be that you host a client webinar with them, it could be internal training, like I mentioned before. If you're really good at something and someone's struggling, you know, step up, you know, and finding your voice is part of that. You know, you've got to put your hand up in this time and you know, kind of suggest ideas, suggest new ways of working, be accountable for yourself and your team and the peers around you. And just by sitting back and hoping for the best, I don't think we're going to achieve what we want to achieve. And actually, there's a piece here about men versus women, you know, and I've seen it in my company, and you will see it in every organisation, that, and this is a general view, but, you know, men are very good at sort of promoting themselves, and they're quite good at leaning in and saying, I'll do that, I'll take that. And, you know, as women, we need to make sure that we don't get overshadowed, and finding something that could be a real benefit to either your client base or your organisation is really, really important. So, you know, I'd really encourage you to speak up, don't be shy, you know, and also to some extent, you know, this is the time to sort of fight for what you believe in within reason. Hold your nerve, you know, if it's something scary or it's something strong that you've got to say, you know, as long as it's done in a professional way, we absolutely should be speaking up and making sure that everything's done in the right way, everything's done ethically, you know, and no matter what level you're at and what stage you are in your career, there's always something that you can do that really adds value to the people around you. So really go away and think about what that could be, because again, that could really set you apart from your competition. An example of this, a slightly different example, but when I was quite well regarded at Investigo, and I was very much seen as a career woman and focused on the job. And when I announced to people that I was pregnant, and I was pregnant with twins, I instantly saw people sort of switch off. And there was a sense that people, not on purpose, but they kind of wrote me off. And, you know, they sort of probably thought, God, she's not going to be around for that long. She's going off. You know, what can she really achieve in that time? She's not really important to me. She's not going to be here. And I had to find a new voice. I had to find a new way of being valuable, you know, to the organisation in a short period of time, when I was used to being quite well regarded and, you know, I could do what I want, basically. So I almost had to reinvent myself. And I did that by picking up projects. I actually went back to recruiting and picked up the phone and tried to make some money for my team. And I thought of new ways to kind of build my reputation again in a slightly different way. And people suddenly were like, okay, yeah, we're not going to write her off, even though she is going off. You know, she's still very good at what she does. So, you know, sometimes finding your voice and finding your place is quite hard, but it's a must in this time.
Thank you.
So my next tip is it's a real must, but it's a very basic one. It's about finding a mentor or a buddy, or multiple mentors or buddies. So if you don't have a mentor, then I would absolutely recommend it. You know, we're not islands, we all need support. And actually in my time, I've had a handful of mentors and coaches, you know, from professional coaches, you know, when I'm, you know, aiming for a promotion, to informal mentors, to people that, you know, I just go for a glass of wine with, and I kind of go, oh, this is really getting me down. What do you think? Or, you know, actually I've, you know, reacted in this way. Do you think that was right? Even down to, you know, my husband and my father that I just chew the fat with. But if you haven't got a formal mentor relationship or someone that you can really learn from and rely on, now is the time to find it. You know, the reason it's really important is sometimes we need an opinion shared. Sometimes we need our confidence boosted. Sometimes we need a shoulder to cry on. But actually, in this period, now's a really, really good time to learn about yourself, to learn about what success looks like. You know, to kind of grow in a difficult time. You know, we may have some more time on our hands. We may have some opportunity to sort of think about what we want to be in the future when the market returns. You know, I think I've really seen this as an opportunity to do the things that have been on a, you know, even if it's DIY, it's been on a to-do list for years. And, you know, because I've been taken away from the hustle and bustle of London, I'm able to go, right, okay, I really want to achieve that. So having a mentor in this period, I would say, is an absolute must. And you know, it doesn't have to be a formal relationship. It doesn't have to be someone very senior. It could be a colleague. It could be someone that you look up to. It could be someone outside of work. It could even be, and this is a really interesting way of doing it, and I've done this before and quite recently, it could be a client or a candidate of yours, which also ties into your brand in the market, your knowledge of the market. You know, if there's a candidate or client that you get on really well with and they're in a senior position, or you feel like you could learn from them, why not reach out and say, hey, you know, in this period, I really want to develop. I also want to, you know, someone to get advice from. I want some business advice rather than recruitment advice. Would you consider just, you know, doing some informal mentoring online and you know, just chewing the fat of it? And it's invaluable. Every person that I know that is in a senior position actively goes out and finds a mentor and a buddy on a regular occasion. So definitely encourage you guys to do that. It's absolutely invaluable. The next tip, if there's no other questions, the next tip is a difficult one, but it's about not being afraid to show your vulnerability. And it ties into all the other points that I've mentioned, to be honest with you. But, you know, showing your vulnerability is really scary, I get that, but it is what makes us at the end of the day. You know, it's even more important to be honest with the people around you at the moment. You know, there shouldn't be any big surprises in terms of how you're feeling and what you have to communicate to your people. Whilst, you know, we are in an unknown situation and no one really knows what the future holds, being really open and honest and demonstrating that you're also worried, or even saying to your leader that you are struggling, is really, really important. It's an absolute strength, not a weakness, and it shows that you care. It shows that you are confident in yourself. It shows that you want to improve, or that you want to support your people. And you know, it's a real human touch that I think is needed in these times. You know, if I said to my guys, you know, everything's great, everything's amazing, you know, and I didn't say to them, do you know what, honestly, I'm finding it tough. I'm worried. You know, I know we can get through this and I believe in you all, but of course I'm worried. And, you know, some days I'm exhausted and sometimes I feel really crappy as well. You know, but that's okay, because this is unprecedented times, guys. You know, so it's okay to feel a bit crap, and it's okay to say, do you know what, I'm feeling crap today, I'm not having a good day. You know, and that's really, really important from both sides. You know, the one thing I would say though in relation to that is think about a solution. You know, don't just go, this is crap, I feel crap, this is, you know, whatever. Think about a solution. So if you go to someone and say, look, I'm really struggling with this, but what I'm thinking is X, Y, and Z. You know, don't just think of the problem, don't just think of the situation. Also think about how you can get yourself out of it, and also what support you need. You know, you'll be really surprised that, you know, managers and I think directors generally, they're almost expected to read your mind. And they're not superheroes. You know, they can't read your mind. You have to share and you have to be brave enough to share. And now is not the time to bottle things up, and now is not the time to keep things to yourself. So, you know, I'd really encourage you to be brave enough to show some of that vulnerability.
And Angharad, we've got about 10 minutes left, but
Okay. I'm actually nearly there, so you're all good.
One of the questions that has come through just touches on that point of vulnerability, which again, I agree with you. I think it's very important we recognise we're all humans at the moment, upwards and downwards. But a question has come through, which is quite an interesting one, maybe to explore this point further, around how can you encourage your management team to show their human side and vulnerability? So I guess that's if you're not feeling as though your leadership are demonstrating that, and perhaps you might yourself, it becomes difficult, doesn't it?
Do you think that question is aimed from upwards rather than downwards?
I'm reading that as if you're okay. Yes, I hadn't. It's upwards. Yeah, it is upwards.
Okay. So it really goes down to the overall point that I've been making, to be brave. You know, we all need feedback, and we all need to know when the message that we're giving isn't landing well enough. And, you know, the only way you can really do that is by being open and honest and about having a conversation. You absolutely have to frame it in the right way. You know, and I would say you've got to sort of frame it as you know, I really support you. I really want to do a good job. We all do. However, this is how we are feeling. You know, it really is the only way to do it, because frankly, I think some of the management team in lots of businesses are under a lot of pressure, and they may not be used to that pressure. They're probably getting lots of messages from above, you know, work harder, make money, you know, pedal harder, do everything you can to kind of get your profit up, or whatever those messages are, and they're also panicking. And they're also feeling that stress, and so they're probably not able to communicate that downwards very well, because, you know, they're struggling. We're all struggling. This is the overall message, right? Everybody is struggling, no matter what level you are. So you have to pull together, and I think you will have to, you know, give that message in a constructive way upwards, and just say, look, you know, we're not feeling that human side. You know, we're not feeling that we are protected. You know, please can you reassure us? Please can you come and talk to us in a bit more of an open, honest way, because you know, we're at home worrying, and, you know, we're really not feeling like we're connecting with you. I really think that's the only way to do it, and that absolutely goes back to my point around, you know, speaking up and being brave.
Thank you.
My last point is actually around wellbeing, which obviously came up anyway. So this is more important now than it ever has been. And, you know, whilst wellbeing is definitely a term that's used in recruitment, I don't really think that we've lived and breathed it, if I'm honest with you. And I'm hopeful that this becomes part of the new normal and people can find their balance. You know, if I look at myself, you know, before lockdown, I got up at 4:30 every morning. I didn't see my children in the morning. I commuted into London, which is kind of nearly 2 hours. I worked solidly all day, and you know, give myself a really hard time, and work very intensely, rush home, you know, get my children at the worst point of the day when they're absolutely shattered, spend 15 minutes with them, rush them to bed, you know, and often work in the evening or you know, whatever, and really not take any time for myself. And you know, I feel like hopefully those days are gone in recruitment. I really do think that agile working and flexibility and really looking after yourself has to be at the forefront of every CEO's agenda when we come out of this, and it has to be part of the new normal. But in lockdown, it's really, really important. You know, you can be isolated. It's very intense. You know, some things are quite negative. You know, you lose your confidence. You don't feel great about what's going on. You have to manage your well-being. So, you know, exercise is definitely a big thing. You know, even if you're not a big exerciser, what I've really enjoyed doing is getting my headphones in, doing calls and walking whilst I'm calling people. And I do that 1 hour every day without fail. And my mindset completely changes, you know, when I come back from that walk, and it's really, really key. You know, I think talking to people, outside of work, and connecting with people is really important. You know, some of the stuff we've done actually in work, we've done, you know, quizzes, we've done virtual bars, we've done a charity event, we've done BD competitions, you know, we've done a catchphrase game, we've done charades, you know, we've done a lot more than we normally would do, because we recognise that, you know, people are banging their head against a brick wall and they need that light relief. But you need to find that for yourself. So don't rely on other people to find that balance for you. You need to recognise that in yourself, and that's in this period, but also beyond. You know, so don't put pressure on yourself to learn a new language or start running like lots of people are doing. You know, I look out the window every day and there's blatantly someone that's never run in their life trucking along. You know, if that's not you, then don't do it. You know, don't feel that pressure, but find the thing that actually takes you away from some of that negativity and, you know, gives you just a bit of a breather. You know, it could be that, you know, you just sit in the garden and have a glass of wine, you know, and if that's at 3 o'clock and not 6 o'clock, do it. You know, you've really got to find a balance. And, you know, I also think now is the time for family first. So we say that a lot at Investigo, you know, family first. And you know, if you've got children at home, if you've got family at home, then they have to be a priority. And I know it's hard, and I'm speaking from experience, when, you know, you're on a call and the kids are loud and you get frustrated with them, but, you know, that's the balance that you've got to get right, you know. But also, if you've not got kids, you're probably missing your parents and you need to connect with them. So, you know, find a way to make sure that your professional and personal life is well balanced and that you look after your well-being, because if you come out of this in a really difficult situation, or you don't survive it because you haven't looked after yourself, then you will suffer as well as your organisation. And, you know, mental strength is what's going to get us through this at the end of the day. Nothing else. Pure mental strength is going to be right at the top of what's going to help us all survive.
Thank you. And I think that's really important. I mean, I was watching something yesterday which absolutely aligned with what you've just been saying there. And I think everything you read says, you know, it's a little bit like being on an aeroplane and they tell you when the air mask comes down, put yours on before you try and help anyone else. And it's a little bit like that at the moment now, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, first and look
Absolutely.
after yourself. You know, you're no good to anybody. Well, the company asked about furloughing, Angharad.
Yeah.
You know, to furlough people, how are you keeping those people engaged with the business whilst they're on furlough? Have you got any advice on that?
Yeah, I've got some good advice actually, and it's one of the things that I think we're doing really, really well. So we haven't furloughed hundreds and hundreds of people, so it's a smaller amount maybe to others, but we've got a good amount of people on furlough, and we're doing lots of things. So when I do a virtual bar at 4 o'clock on a Friday, they join. We've got WhatsApp groups going so that they're totally, you know, obviously they can't work, but they're totally still connected with a team. We've got our L&D guys to do lunch and learns so that they can learn and grow whilst they're being furloughed, and they're not just sat there, you know, doing nothing. So if you don't have an L&D team, and this could be part of the value that you add, maybe you do a lunch and learn about, you know, something relevant in your desk and your sector, and you invite the furloughed people to join. You know, things like that is really, really important. We did a quarterly presentation last night to the whole company, which was, you know, an all hands meeting just to say, guys, you know, we're really proud of everything you're doing. Thanks for working hard. And thanks to all the furlough people that are actually doing something for the survival of the business. You know, you're really part of the future by being furloughed. And so we invited them to that as well. But I'd say you need weekly, if not, you know, sort of bi-weekly at least touch points with your furloughed staff. And also you need to recognise that they're bored, and whilst they've got cupboards to clean and they're running or whatever they're doing, they're probably missing work, because that is a distraction in these times. So how can you get them to learn and grow whilst they're off on furlough is really, really important.
Thank you. There's quite a few questions that have come through, and I think as you've gone through, you have addressed a fair number of them, but maybe we could wrap up with just a couple more, Angharad.
Sure.
One was, how do we keep wellbeing, mental health, D&I, culture, etc., central to the business when we've got such challenging times ahead of us?
Really good question, and tricky. You know, I think well-being absolutely has to be just as important, you know, as anything else at the moment. And so if you haven't got, you know, things like, you know, we do Wellbeing Wednesday. If you haven't got a Wellbeing champion, if you don't talk about wellbeing as part of your team meetings and your leadership meetings in terms of how people are finding things, you know, if you don't ask for suggestions around wellbeing and mental health from your people, then you should start doing that now. And you should start thinking about how you can support your people above and beyond what you're doing currently. You know, and if your business isn't doing that, then I would absolutely take that as a suggestion to your board or to your director or to your manager and say, look, you know, I don't feel that we're doing enough for wellbeing. These are my suggestions. You know, we've done a meditation session where everyone just sat and was still and quiet for a while. And, you know, that's really simple stuff you can do online, no training required, no leader required. You can just all sit and sort of take 20 minutes and sit quietly. And that is something that anybody can drive. So, you know, I don't know, you know, what structure your business is and you know, what the culture is, but for me, wellbeing is something that anybody can get involved with. In terms of D&I, look, I think D&I is a really tricky one to kind of drive remotely. You know, like I said, I run our D&I panel at Investigo, and lots of the things we do is around, you know, making sure our workforce is diverse, making sure we do regular D&I thought leadership and events. You know, you could absolutely do some D&I events online, you know, which the webinars we've been doing and the events we've been doing have been really well received. There's no reason why you can't write a blog about D&I just to get that topic back out there in the marketplace. But in terms of really driving it remotely, you know, I think a part of it is about culture and making sure that your business is connecting with everybody. You know, I connect with everybody in my business at least once a month, and I do an informal half-an-hour coffee catch-up with them, and now it's online, and I just talk to them about how they're feeling. Do they feel included in everything? Do they feel like they're being supported? You know, do they need anything from me? You know, and it could be a resource or a junior consultant or a director, and you know, I always frame it with, what can I do to help you? You know, how can I help you in this time? How can I make it easier? You know, and what else can we do to make sure that you're supported? You know, and if you're not doing that, your business is not doing that, then maybe that's a suggestion to take to the leadership team.
Thank you. And I think just to flesh that out a little bit more as well, I mean, I'm wondering if the question is also asking what's going to happen when we come out the other side and our businesses are under sort of financial pressure to build revenue again and rebalance the books. And on that basis, I think I'd just make a couple of comments myself. I'm actually really hopeful that wellbeing and mental health might have a bigger spotlight when we do come out the other side of this, actually, and that some of the, as you talked about, adversity and opportunity being created through it. I am hoping that this period of adversity is going to allow that focus on wellbeing and mental health to shift somewhat, and for the business world to understand it a bit better, because quite often we don't focus on things when we either don't value them or we don't know or understand enough about them. So my hope is that this focus on mental health and wellbeing will shift, and there'll be a greater understanding of the value that plays organisationally, as well as in individuals' personal lives. And I also think, I mean, you touched on D&I and the issues being very much cultural, and they are. And again, I'm wondering if now is the time where corporate values and culture start to be the one thing that actually helps organisations come through, and those that have that strong set of values that run through the thread of the business, and where they have got a strong culture that everyone identifies with, this is now where they'll draw on it. This is where it will come together and really show the value of that within an organisation. So again, I would hope that we're really reinforcing the value of these points, and that when we come out the other side, they won't go to the bottom of the list. They'll actually have been pushed somewhat higher up, because this is the time where we will see how valuable those that infrastructure is to an organisation. And I think if you work in a company that do disregard this, you've always got this period of time as a bit of a case study to draw back to remind your board or your leadership, you know, the importance of these things, and the spotlight's been put on them now, and therefore it has formed that opportunity for us to use this time in a positive way, even when we come through the other side.
Yeah.
So thank you for that question, and we're going to have one final one because I think we're running close to the end of the session, and hopefully this is a good one to end on. Angharad, what are your key learns that you'll take away from the COVID-19 experience yourself personally?
I guess the one thing for me is that, you know, I'm really proud of my business and my people and how they've reacted to this. But I think, you know, my key learn in general is, you know, we cannot take things for granted. You know, and in recruitment, it's such a rat race. Okay, you're up and you're down, and when you're up, it's amazing. And you know, we all celebrate deals, and you know, we go on high flyers and things like that. But you know, at the bare bones of this, you know, this situation, people have lost their lives, and you know, people have been in really difficult situations, and you know, we get upset when a deal drops out, or you know, or a candidate, you know, isn't kind to us. And I think we've got to put everything into perspective, but also, you know, when things are good in the recruitment, you know, the recruitment space, we shouldn't take that for granted, and we should be grateful for, you know, having jobs and being part of great companies and having the opportunity to often earn, you know, much more money than lots of other people across the industry. And it's just made me feel far more grateful for the business that I work in.
Thank you, and thanks so much for showing your humility and vulnerability with us today. It's really important, as you said earlier, and you also said, Angharad, at the start that you would share some stories with us, which is what you've done. You've given us real live examples of how you have applied the things you've talked to us about, and I think storytelling is such a powerful way of creating empathy and creating learning, and so I think that's again something perhaps we can take away from the session today, is that we have all got stories, we've all got experiences that we can share that will help those around us. And I guess my takeaway from this whole COVID-19 experience has been, and it links very much to the D&I agenda, is that I think this one experience has just shown how we are all human. It has been an indiscriminate virus that's gone round, and nobody has been protected from it. And what I think it's shown is that we're all the same in that regard, albeit we're all still different. So I think what comes out of this is a real sense of we're all human, we've all got skills, we've all got something to offer. I mean, who would have thought the bin men and the bus drivers would have been, you know, so valued 3 months ago? And now we're really seeing the contribution that different people can make to our world. And I really hope that when we come out of this, there will, as you said, be a much more of a sense of appreciation of the value that everyone's got to offer, the role we all play, that everyone has a story that contributes. And that organisationally we will take some good things from this that bring a bit of humanity back to what we do. And we are very lucky to work in an industry which is all about human beings, isn't it? So thank you for your wisdom and your wise words, and I'm sure you'd be happy.
Thank you for having me.
And thanks, Angharad, and I'm sure you, as I, are happy to connect with anybody over LinkedIn afterwards if there is any need to discuss any of this further to help anybody.
Absolutely, no problem.
Thank you again. And next week we've got Louise Devil-Smith, founder of Daisy Chain, talking to us, and her focus will be on flexible working and how to make this work for you as an individual or within your business. So again, a hot topic before COVID and probably after. So I do hope you'll be able to join us then and enjoy what looks like going to be a nice sunny weekend again. So take care, everybody, and thank you very much.
Thanks. Bye-bye. Take care. Thanks, everyone.